Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Radical Rally Productions. This is the start of Season 2, Bayoneta Island. We are here today with our cast assessment. So we got myself, as always, your host, Jay Milligan. And I'm just going to have everyone introduce themselves. So Marvin, go ahead.
Co-host here, Marvin Burgos.
We got Bill McGrath joining us from last season. And we got also joining us in production from last season, Matthew Williamson. Matt, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Matt. My trusty sidekick Spencer is here.
Spencer's always by the side. But with that, we are going to go ahead and get started. If my computer lets me. All right. First up, we have Andrew Christian. His pronouns are he, him. He's 51 years old. He's from Twin Cities, Minnesota, and he's an engineer. And he is actually an org newbie. So this will be Andy's first org ever. From his interview, just to go start out, Andy can talk a lot, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on who he uses it with, how you can read that. And as long as he's not taking control of too much rooms and just be like trying to be out there too much because it might turn people off, I think he has to kind of, I think he does have he was talking about his interview. He had kind of like he does an improv group, I believe, and he will with the improv, he's very within that and very good. So I think it's like a goodish thing for him that he's able to work with these younger people, and especially because this is a fairly young cast. But I think he's either he's going to be in trouble early, and if he can get past it, I can see Andy kind of going deep. I think if he can tone down his talking and trying to take being too out there in the room, he's gonna be good to go. Any other thoughts?
I love this guy. Absolutely love him. He's really interesting. He is quirky. He is a member with myself of the AARP Org Players Club. So we talked about that a little, and he very much has the sense of what it is like, as an older player. You need to, exactly what Jay said, you need to survive the first couple of rounds and work your ass off to make relationships that will carry you through. I think he can do that. I do think, as Jay says, he talks a lot, and maybe that will be different in a game setting as opposed to interview setting. But I think if he can get some traction early and find some peeps, I think he's got a decent shot of doing well.
I would agree. I think he has to get through those first couple rounds, especially those first couple challenges. If he can show that he stands out in challenges too, people might see him as an asset and be like, what, maybe let's not get rid of him. Maybe let's try to go for someone else, because if those first few challenges are crucial for him too, I think, because I feel like sometimes these older people, just because it's so much younger, are such easy targets, and it is messed up. So if he can prove he's an asset in challenges, I feel like that just helps his case a lot too. Anyone else got any thoughts on Andy over here?
No, I think the two of you pretty much said everything and covered everything you guys need to with Andy. So
love him.
Yeah, great. Love the guy. Next, we move on to Julia Brown. Her pronouns are she, her. She's 19 years old. She's from New Hampshire. We have Austin Garso. His pronouns are he, him. He's 26, from Green Bay, Wisconsin, and he's a graphic designer. So Austin is a rookie, I would say. He played one game of DCP, and he went decently far, was in the merge. I think he was 8th place-ish and got idled out. That's the only game he's ever played. So I think Austin just from his interview, is incredibly intelligent. He has no problem showing he's intelligent. And my problem with that is that if he can hide that, he's good, but I also think it can help him. I'm just not sure how it's going to factor out. I would say he's probably going to fall that early pre-merge, late pre-merge, early jury phase, if I'm being honest. I see him being that same way he was in DCP, but if he can downplay it, I can see him going deep. I think he's an incredibly smart guy, and that it really shows. And he is he's very genuine. I do think on camera and everything. Who wants to chime in?
Austin is, as you said, very smart. He's kind of quiet. He doesn't have a big personality, which, can cut either way. He can, attempt to glide through the early rounds and then pick up. Or that can just isolate him. So it will be interesting to see which way that goes.
Yeah,
Right.
I think it will be interesting to see how Austin does, because he did mention in his application that he tends to be shy at the beginning. And then once he gets the ball rolling, obviously he opens up. But being a mini is how fast is he going to be able to open up and make the connections that he needs?
Right. I think if Austin would win, his tribes to win the first or second, first 1 to 2 immunity challenges, I think he's golden. The problem is that if he loses that first or second immunity challenge, I could see some concern. I can see him getting some votes, to be entirely honest. Like, I don't want Austin to be a first move because I think he's incredibly intelligent. I think he's going to play an amazing strategic game. I'm just worried for him in those first few votes. But if he can get past that, he's going to play an incredible game, that's for sure. Like, he's going to bring it. Like, that's my thing with him.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have anything to add on? All right, let's move on. Next, we have Sheed Wade. His pronouns are he, him. He's 30. He's from Philadelphia. All right, next we have Miles Soukoff, who was an addition today, the night before. His pronouns are he, him. He's 19. He's from Fair Lawn, New Jersey, and he's a tennis coach and a student. So just start off with Miles. I would say probably more strategic. He's kind of a very shy player at times. I just don't know where Miles is going to fall. I would say I don't want Miles to go pre-merge, but that's kind of an overwhelming fear I have with him. It's like, I think he could go far, but there's also the chance that he's not very talkative. He's kind of very shy. He doesn't open up very quickly. He's kind of very to himself. He's a quiet kid, which nothing wrong with that. But I think that is what's going to come back for him, if that makes sense.
Yes. Now, the thing with Miles is I feel like the thing that will bite him in the ass is that he's not scared to go after the big players, big names. He is not scared. And if anything, I feel like that specifically is what's going to bite him in the ass, if anything, especially if he makes it to the merge stage of the game.
Right. And I feel like I can see him being like early merge. I can see him be like, let's start a name at the merge move. And he'd be like, all right, Miles, start a name. Let's put all our votes in Miles. Like, I could see that happening to him. Where it's just like, oh, first one, throw a name. Okay. Like, don't have to tell me twice.
I don't know Miles. I've never seen him play. I'm just looking at his application, and I just have to say, who is a Survivor player non-winner you feel is underrated and why? Alicia Holden. She is hot AF. I think I kind of love him just for that.
Exactly. Like that's the thing. Like, he's just gonna be like a straight young college guy. Like,
yeah, that's the thing. He's 19.
He's 19. He's gonna play like a 19-year-old.
For like a 19-year-old, I feel like he had stated in his application as well as that he tends to get underestimated because he's a younger order. And that's one thing that I definitely did when I first played with Miles. And I'm like, oh, he is definitely someone that I can't underestimate because he knows what he's doing and he's going to go after whatever he wants to do until he gets it done or it bites him in the ass, like I had said previously.
Yeah. And I do think like the underestimate part does work out for sense because no one would be worried at Miles. And I think if Miles can sit at the end and people are going to be like, jaws drops to the ground with how much he can do. Like, I think, and I've seen it happen where Miles has won orgs because we were like, what did Miles do? And then he sits there final tribal and they're like, whoa, you did all that. Like, he's just that good of a player. Like, he will get business done. It's the problem. The question is, if he can get it done, not will he, because he will try to get it done. It's just if it will happen. I think he can go. Like I said, if he survives the pre-merge, I can see him making it. He can get. If he survives, I probably would say like at least to like a couple rounds of the merge. I don't think he's gonna go. I think you could see him in final 3.
Yeah, and he like once he opens up and actually gets to talking to people, he is very strategic. He says what he wants to say and is willing to make a strategic move moving forward.
Right. Agreed. Anyone else got anything else on Miles before we get going here? All right. Next, we have Jackie Dennis. Their pronouns are they, them. They're 29 years old from Nashville. Next, we have Luke Gobel. Pronouns are he, him, age 40 from Indianapolis, Indiana. He is a science teacher, inspire, motivator, changer of lives. And that just right there says who Luke is as a person. Like that, like what you're seeing right now from those few words is Luke. He's incredibly easy to get along with. He's just super bubbly, super upbeat, super hilarious. Like, even in his answer application, like I was like, oh, we gotta get Luke on. Like, it was just in his interview. I don't know who's on it, but I think Bill was there, and we were just sitting there like dying hysterically because this guy could just talk and like can light up a room in seconds. I think he's good socially. The problem is that like last on DCP, he saw it was him, and he goes. Like he can't defend himself. Like I feel like almost like I seen that DCP where he was just kind of like, oh, it's me, haha. Well, and he gave me a name instead of being like, this is what I'll give to you. And I think if Luke can say, hey, this is what I'll give to you, I can present you this, they're presenting you that, but this is what I'll give you. Luke can have a good chance. But I say he's gonna go like 9-8, like around early merge, I would say for the most part. Good.
Yeah, I agree. Luke is a personality. Luke is usually very good TV. So I'm always happy to see him play. I think you're right. I think he has to become more assertive. And it's not so much he has to be the one out there screaming names, but he needs to throw his support and not be on the fence. He sometimes it seemed like he will vote the last name he heard. And so I think if he can focus on the strategy side a little more, I think he can do really well. I see him. I can see him post-merge.
Right, and he is a veteran that does play a lot of minis, so he knows ins and outs. So, go ahead, Bill. What are you gonna say? I kind of cut you off. Sorry.
Me? No.
Yeah. Marvin, you got anything to say to base application?
Just based off of his occupation as a science teacher and inspire and motivate people, I feel like just like within the challenges, he will be someone to be like motivating his tribe, being like, yeah, let's go, we can do it. Like someone that's going to be so uplifting, especially him being a science, specifically a teacher. So I feel like he would be able to communicate with the younger players as well with that aspect. So
right, and he is somebody who is very like I said, just like that. He's a cheerleader, and like that's somebody I would want around my tribe. Even if he's not the best in challenges, he's gonna uplift us. He's gonna be like, "Team, we got this. If we lose another challenge, my laptop's about to die." But like he's gonna be, "Team, we're gonna lose another challenge. We got this. We're gonna go do it." Like he's never gonna like downplay a tribe. He's gonna be like, "Hey, we got the next one, guys. Like it's okay, we lost." Like I said, in general, he's a very uplifting guy, and I think that does help his case a lot. Anyone else got anything on Luke over here? All right, here we go. Next up, we have Mitchell Decker. His pronouns are he, him. He's 18 years old from Normal, Illinois, and his occupation is a student. He is basically a newbie, a rookie. He's played one game before, and it was a mini. just quick notes about Mitchell, even from his application, from his interviews. He's gonna try too hard to be the villain. There's a difference, like this, you can be the villain, but there's a difference between that and people are gonna try too hard to be the villain. He's gonna be like, and he even said he's like, I'm a villain in my interview. Like he had it with a big smirk. I think it's gonna bite him. Like I do. I think I can see him going. I can see him going in the, I can see him going pre-merge. Like he's gonna try to be a villain. He's gonna try too hard to be a villain. He's gonna be a messy player. And I don't know about you guys, but those messy players, they gotta go. I need someone who's rational. I think he's the messy villain type, if that makes sense.
So I will jump in and say that I can see that happening. And I think him being a rookie and also him being the youngest on the cast and him wanting to be a messy villain is not going to help him whatsoever. Especially if, let's say, his tribe wins like the first 2 immunities and then he's rubbing people the wrong way. As soon as that tribe goes to tribal, he will more than likely be the one voted out.
I can see him throwing out a name just to be like, oh, this person's a confessional. This person's rubbing the wrong way. How did you guys feel about voting them out? And everyone's gonna be like, whoa, dude, we're winning. Like, let's not manifest that energy. Like, I think I can see him being like that. I don't think he will, but I wouldn't be surprised. Anyone else got?
I could be way off with this, but I could see him potentially being an earlier boot because he is more of an introvert, and in these kind of minis with like the breakout minis and everything, your social game has to be fast. It has to be like most of the game later on is just strategizing, so you have to really make those bonds very fast in this game. And I'm worried if he's a bit shy, it's going to be a bit too late for him before he realizes it.
I can see someone like a Julia really getting pissed off at him, be like, no, this bitch has got to go. Because I can see Julia not want to deal with this shit, like, at all.
I'll be interested to see if he can contain that in the early rounds, because I think that's going to be important to him. In his interview, he stressed the fact that, he pitched himself as an average Midwest boy, a Boy Scout. He's new to reality TV in general. He only started picking it up during the pandemic. But if he can control himself early and, be the nice Midwestern farm boy, that might help him out before he goes and explodes and becomes messy. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. Early boot. Sorry, Mitchell.
I will say, like, I put a huge check mark next to Eagle Scout, but like, I just don't see him going far. I want to because like I want to root for the Eagle Scout, but like as one, but like.
Oh, speaking of both Eagle Scouts and the theme of this game, I was sort of shocked. A relatively unique answer to who is your Survivor non-winner you feel is underrated and why. His selection was Lil from Pearl Islands.
Interesting.
That will make her, maybe that will help him out here and make him fit right in if he winds up being in Lil's position, as it were.
That is interesting. That is a good point to bring up. All right. Anyone has got anything else to say, Mitchell, before we go ahead and move on to our next contestant? Next, we got Bennett. If I pronounce this wrong, I'm sorry. I think it's Sure. His pronouns are he, him. He's 23. He's from Los Angeles, California. He's a tennis pro shop attendant and a grad student, and this is his first game. He is a newbie. So based on Bennett, from his interviews, I can tell he's a bubbly person. He's like, so we're gonna like, I'm so glad to give this opportunity to play. Like, are you like just the energy? He's like, can we are you gonna make a Zoom meeting or like should I make one? Like, are we gonna do a phone call? I'm like, no, we will do a Zoom meeting. I'm not giving my phone number. Like, nothing against you, but like, I'm not giving my phone number out to random people. And it's like, he is very energetic, so excited to play. And I'm excited to see how he does. I think he's gonna be more strategic. He's gonna be very social. I don't see him having a problem in this game at all. Like, I think he's gonna be a late merger. Like he is gonna be, like I said, if he can tone it down just a little bit, which I don't think he's like, he doesn't come off as overbearing. He comes off very exciting. He's someone you want to get along with, like, you know. And he's from New Jersey, so that is a huge check mark right there for me. I think he's gonna be. I don't think he's gonna have a problem. I think someone like a Jackie can pick him up, or like a Julia. Like I think he's gonna be picked up by some of the people on our cast and really be used as a number. And I think he can outshine them. And I think he has the balls to cut people. Like I'm excited to see him play. I have nothing to base it off of besides application, his interview interactions and stuff. Like he should have said, I think he said it. What Marvin, you were there. He said he was gonna play a villain. Like he said he has no problem that, like, listen, you gotta do what you gotta do in these games. And I think he's watched them, and just to have the understanding, do what he's gotta do, says a lot. And he actually admitted in an interview he went back and watched the first season because he wanted to know exactly what was going on.
Yeah, you pretty much said everything I was gonna say. I do see him clicking with Jackie and Julia, with just the type of personality that he has. I see that, bonding with Julia at that aspect, and how he said that he's not scared and he's willing to play a villain if he has to and cut people out. And how we mentioned that Jackie, they play a villain as well. I see those two coming together and being the two villains of the season if they want to make something happen and make moves.
I agree. And even if they don't, I can see them being like, oh, let's try to work together. Like they'll always keep each other at arm's length. Like they'll keep each other, him and Jackie. Go ahead, Bill.
That's interesting. I mean, especially someone playing their first org and wanting to come in and be a villain. I'll be interested to see how he does with it, because it's an entirely different thing on game day. And I think if he, tones it down, and his best approach as a newbie might be to, as y'all said, hook up with Jackie and Julia, and sort of during a lot of the real bloodshed be able to say, yeah, I was with the villains, but they were the ones who got all the blood off their hands. If he comes out sort of like the cackling villain, I don't know if he's going to last as long. I think he needs to bring it down. Also, just interesting, apropos of nothing, but they're not usual choices. His favorite Survivor runner-up is Monica Culpepper, and the non he thinks is underestimated is Twyla. Well,
I love that for him. Like he is amazing. Like I said, he's a personality. He's gonna be great as long as he's in the game. I can see him going far, but I think, and I will say this, Bennett, if you're watching this right now, you got two pretty big or better villains in me and Marvin that you better not live down, because we know what it's like to play a good villain game. So just saying that right now, you got some big shoes to fill. Anyone else got anything else to add on?
Yeah, basically Bill kind of touched on this. I think the issue with the newbie villains is always they go in with a checklist. I want to vote out my closest ally. I want to make this big move. I want to do this. I want to do that. And then sometimes once you get into the game, and those moves aren't what needs to happen, but you kind of just want to find a way to make it happen. So I think he's going to need to find that balance and understand, okay, at this point, I can't really maybe be as villainous as I wanted to be. At this point, I do need to be more cutthroat, and just figuring out the right times to apply that strategy and when not. So
I will say there is a way to play a villain without cutting your closest allies. And I have done that in games. Like there is a way to do it. All right, and next. Anyone got anything else before we move on? I think we got three more people here before we have a special surprise for you guys. So next up we have Rebecca Gillerton, I think it's pronounced. I'm sorry if I butchered it. Well, Gillerton, yeah. Her pronouns are she, her. She's 28 from Lansing, Michigan, and she's a nanny. I will say this, just kind of watching Rebecca, I've seen her around the community. I'm not too sure who she is, like as much. I haven't played with her. From interviews, she's an upbeat person. She's super bubbly. Her game is gonna be her social game. She's even admitted she's not best to challenge. I think we could see her to emerge. I just don't know what she does at the merge. I think, she does say she lacks in strategy, I believe. Like, she's going to be a good player, or she's going to be good TV. People are going to want to work with her. I'm just curious as far as to where she goes. I think she's going to be good, but I'm just not sure where she really falls, if that makes sense.
So, yeah, Rebecca just finished playing Corey's Org a few weeks ago. She got a close second place. I heard very good things about her game. Very good socially. One challenge is that, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think she got a single vote all season. I think the one issue that I've heard is that she can be a bit too individualistic, not necessarily defensive enough of her allies, not necessarily taking the initiative to keep her allies safe, which can leave her outnumbered later on in the game. But if she can find a good group of people, can keep them around, keep the numbers in her favor, I could see her getting to the end and possibly winning.
Right, I can agree with that. I can test that. Like, that's the thing. It's important to keep your allies safe for as long as you can. Like, sometimes there's a point where you have to give up an ally to better your game. But like, the same time is like, you have to be conscious of that. And when it's a good time, like, we've all had to do it, where we had to give up an ally in a game. Like, it happens. Like, if you're outnumbered, you know that like this is your chance to get far, you're gonna have to do it. I have done it where like I won't write someone's name down. Hi, Marvin. But like, if you have to let someone go for your game, you have to do it. We all get it. Like, there's no hard feeling. Like, if someone's that close to you, they will understand it. Like, Anyone else got anything to chime in?
Yeah, I will say I'm not familiar with her at all. I will say in her app, she says she's played 8 previous games and she's never been below a final 6. So there's definitely some there. And for me, since I'm unfamiliar with her, she will be one I'll be watching.
Definitely. Like I said, I'm unfamiliar with her and I've seen that, and you want to look out for her.
And side note, her favorite non-winner is Marcus Lehman, which I'm all for because he's one of my biggest Survivor crushes.
He's an attractive man. Anyone else got anything to chime in? Marvin, you got something on your face. What are you thinking?
I'm just trying to remember if I was there for the interview.
You might have been. I think you were.
I think I'm mistaking her for somebody else.
Maybe.
Yep. But I mean, in her application, it does say that she is really strong socially. And like you had previously mentioned, I think Matthew actually mentioned it, that she just came off of being a close runner-up in the last game that she played. But she also stated that in every single org that she's played, she's made at least final 6. She's never placed below final 6. So I want to see what kind of strategic game she brings into this and see if she's able to make it to that final 6 like she has in her previous like org experience.
As someone who's gone pre-merge, not a lot, but a few times, that's impressive. Like, it's hard to get through pre-merge, let alone the final 6. Like, it's hard to get to final 6 once, let alone. And these are all long games. I don't think she's played a mini before. It's like the fact that she can, and we've all been through long games. Getting to final 6 in a long game is draining. It doesn't matter if it's 3 weeks or a full month. You will be drained by the end of it and be like, even if you're out final 6, you're like, thank God I got voted out because I don't know if I can do another few days. And when you're done, you don't want to play another org for like weeks. So like the fact that she can do that, and this is a fast-paced mini, she's not gonna be drained. She's gonna, if she can get through that early merge, I could see her in the end getting votes.
One thing interesting that just struck me, and this goes for maybe a lot of the vets, of which there aren't a huge amount. There are, to my mind, so many players that are new or haven't played that much or haven't played that far, that the vets, and Rebecca's record will not be known, I think, for the most part. So people aren't going to see her face pop up and say, oh, she's got to go. Same thing with Jackie, and I think some other people will see.
Right. I think she's hidden, and that's a good thing for her. All right. Who wants anything else before we move on? All right. Next, we have Nick Cannon, and he is 28 from Seattle, Washington, and is a tech strategist. Nick played one game. Shout out to Dynamic Character Productions, Monte Carlo, and he played really hard, extremely fast, and he was like, "Let's vote out this person. I'm ready." And he was the first boot. So as he's very strategic, that's a very good thing to have in minis sometimes, because those are the games that win minis. I'm curious how he's going to take what he learned about moving too fast and bring it into mini. He even is self-aware enough to know that minis are more my format. And I think he can go far. I could see him being a deep runner if he's able to tone it down just a little bit, hold his cards close to his chest, and go at it to merge. I think we can see him make a deep run. I think he'll be okay. He knows what he's got to do. He's learned from his first mistakes. We've all learned from first games. Like you said, he was a first boot in his first game. Everyone learns from first game, but if you're a first boot in your first game, you're going to learn. Like, he's going to know what he did wrong, and he's going to I think he's going to crush it. Honestly, I think I'm going to call it. I think Nick's my winner pick. I'm just going to say that now. I think he learned enough. He's intelligent enough to know what he did wrong. He's strategic, and I think he's going to get himself going far. Like, I think he knows what he did wrong. He learned from it.
Bold.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that.
It's okay. He's my winner pick, which means he got like second boot.
So my thing is that he's only played one other game on org, obviously, which was DCP, and he was first boot. I don't see him learning from being first boot on what he did wrong there. If he maybe made it up until like the fifth boot, yes, I can see him learning as to what he did wrong throughout those 5 rounds. But I don't think he's going to be able to learn what he did wrong just from one round, because there was still so much game that needed to be played. So I completely disagree with you. But I want to see what he actually has to bring. And if he does end up winning, well, then that's a slap in my face for completely disagreeing with you there. But I don't see him winning.
It's okay. He's my winner pick, so he's probably gonna go at second. If you know, you know. If you watched last season, my winner pick did go at second. So, well, Nick, I'm sorry for watching this advance. I have a winner pick curse, so I'm sorry I said that to you in advance.
I gotta go with what you just said, Jay. Pre-merge. Absolutely pre-merge.
Shots fired at me, damn. I'm just gonna say, I think he's gonna learn. I think he's self-aware enough, and I think he has a strategic tops to make it far. I'm probably gonna be so wrong. I'd probably be so wrong because you guys are laughing at me. But
no, someone cannot learn from their past if they were first boot in the past.
I think you could. I think you could.
I guess we'll find out.
Matt, do you have anything to say? Because everyone just roasted me. Please tell me you agree with me.
I think you can learn from your mistakes enough to not be first boot. I think it's possible, but I think going from that to the win is, we'll see. I think he might have a ways to go.
So,
and I will publicly apologize, Jay, both to you and Nick, if he does in fact win. I will kneel before you.
Fair enough.
So the reason, like the reason I completely disagree with you, Jay, is because I have a feeling that he may end up pulling a Zach and be like, "Oh, I've only played once and I was first boot," and then just keep talking about it.
That's fair. I say if he can win a few immunity challenges, he's gonna be good though. Can we agree with that? If he gets through the first few immunity challenges and wins them, and as his tribe, I think he could sit pretty.
It depends on his tribe. It doesn't depend on him. It depends on his tribe collectively
Okay, fair enough.
and who's on the tribe with him
Right.
and what connections he's made.
Okay. Fair enough. Anyone else got anything to add?
Bold pick.
Next, we have Hart. Just call me that. The rest is unimportant. His pronouns are he, him, and queen. I'm sorry, I'm trying to laugh, but this is just hard. And I love Hart. Yeah, he will not let us put his first name on here. He does not like it. If you know it, do not say it. He will come for you. He's 21, I promise. They're actually 30. He's from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and he's a clinical therapist. This whole thing explains Hart to a T. He is just out there. Like, he is like, Hart is a character. Like, straight up, like, he's a good player, but he's also gonna be straight up a character. Like, you just know Hart's gonna have episode titles. Hart's just gonna be hilarious. Hart is not gonna disappoint as far as edit or anything goes. He is an extremely good player. He's only not made merge once, and he's a veteran. Like, he knows these games inside and out. He's an extremely good player. I don't even know how to use queen in pronouns, so I'm not going to. Queen is amazing. Queen Hart is someone to look out for. Like, love him. But yeah, I think he tends to get chopped at some point in the merge because people know that he will win the game. Like, I could see Hart being like 5th, 4th. Honestly, I don't think Hart's going anywhere anytime soon because Hart's just so good to get along with, and just like that, being a therapist, he can relate to people. He has that skill because he is a therapist. He's genuine. He knows how to be like, even if it's not true in games, he can put that genuine face on because he is a therapist. Like, it helps him a lot.
Hart is he's definitely going to be one of the personalities of the season. He is definitely see him being a fan favorite, and he's going to give us some good ass confessionals, or at least I'm hoping he is.
I agree. Hart is going to bring you confessionals. I know you two are dying to go and say something about Hart, so go ahead.
So it's going to be really interesting to see him play because Hart is super popular in his section of the community, very popular. I think most games he plays, he generally has a lot of friends, and I think a lot of people, when they play enough games with their friends, can let their guard down, and that can be their downfall. I don't think that that's going to be the case with Hart. I think because Hart is outgoing, like I said, you need that, like, you need a fairly big personality, can sometimes be very good in these types of games. So I don't think that's going to hurt him. I think in a way it'll actually could help him because other than, people like Jackie, I think most people won't know him. So he won't have that instant target on his back for being Hart, So it'll be interesting to see, but I think he could end up playing very well in this environment.
I completely agree. I mean, Her Majesty is probably the most prominent or the biggest sort of org name out there, with apologies to everyone else. But he's going to be with a lot of people who do not quite know that, and B, probably has more pre-existing relationships than anyone else, although it's still a very small number, I think, from what I know. But I can definitely see, if they are on the same tribe, he and Jackie are going to get together and they are just going to power through, and then at some point they'll have to turn on each other.
And they both will too. Like, that's what we're hinting. They have both no problem doing it.
Yeah.
And I think,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I just say her Majesty is very charming. I think he has 8 husbands, one of which is on production, Kyle Heath. Yeah, so he has a lot of husbands, including one of mine, fuck off cousin's mine. But yeah, that just shows how popular like is that like people just like are automatically with Heart. Like like if you don't like Heart, something is generally wrong with you. Like just how it is. Anything to add about Her Majesty? I gotta use that as your pronouns though, Heart, when you're seeing this. I'm not gonna tell him until he sees us either. He needs to be like, I'm gonna go by that now. Like, so Bill, you just started a trend.
Mark.
Anything else before we get going? Until next person. Next, we have Ben Horn. His pronouns are he, him. He's 25 years old. He's from Indiana. He's a healthcare worker with a doctorate, and I believe actually too. For things about Ben, very strategic, very smart guy. He's like always in the camera, always energetic. Like Ben is somebody people are gonna work with. My problem is that Ben is, again, he played DCP last season, and people just liked him. That's ultimately like he was strategic, and he was just good, and that's what beta him. Like it's just he went in I think 9th place, 8th place, something like that, and he just went out because he was just good. Like there was just a reason besides that. Like we got to, and then he's good physically. He's good. He's a triple socially. He's a triple threat. Like he can win endurance challenges. Like people are generally afraid of him because they're like, we got to get him out now because if we don't, he's gonna. He just have immunity around his neck. Let's take the shot when we can because if we don't, we don't know if we're gonna get the shot again. And I think that's gonna be Ben's downfall ultimately, is if he can do that or not.
I think that's right. I really like Ben. And I watched the DCP game. He's a very good player. He as he said, Jay, he went out because he raised his profile too much. And so I actually think too, and I think this may have come up in the interview, he may have said, he kind of realizes that with respect to especially challenges. You know, on the social side, well, on the strategy side, one thing I recall, and I may be wrong, but one of the things that started putting his name in the back of the minds of a couple of people is that sometimes I think he came across as telling people what to do rather than sort of collaborating. And I think that may have turned, if I recall correctly, a head or two against him and started putting his name on the street. So hopefully if he can avoid that and sort of stay on the down low on the challenges unless and until it's absolutely necessary, I do think he'll go far.
Right. I was just gonna say that it's okay to turn the challenge ability down. Like I've seen it. I'm someone who's good at challenges. I've seen people who are good at challenges. There's a time and place to win. Like, you know, do you throw challenges? No. But do you need to win the first 4 merge challenges? Absolutely not. Like, listen, I say if you need to win the last 4, you need to win the last 4. But like, that's something he's gonna downplay. Like, not winning those. I think he won. They did similar to what we did last season, a double tribal and the individual immunity after, and he won those first 2 back to back, and then it was just next round gum. Matt, go ahead. So you're unmuted.
Yeah, I want to clear up a bit of what Bill said. It's interesting because in his application he mentioned for his job he works with a lot of teams, but usually not being in charge. So I think he needs to kind of use that experience to try to kind of slip in with different groups without being the one being pushy. If he can get past that problem and maybe tap into that to fix that issue, then I could see him going further.
Right. Anyone else got anything before we move on? All right. Next, we have Amy T. Her pronouns are she, her. She's from Puerto Rico, and she's an archaeologist. And Matt, considering how to re-recruit her, and I see you're unmuted, you can start this one for us.
So I just played Villager with Amy. She got MVP. Amy is very good at making everyone feel like she's their number one. No one wants to vote her out. Everyone is blown away when she's voted out, which could be her downfall if she does make the end. I think a lot of people are so willing to trust her that then when she's not actually with them, they can be pissed. But if she can get past that, I could see her doing really well. I think she's gonna have no problem getting through the early part of the game. I think her biggest obstacle is going to be getting past that late merge. I think she could end up being a very obvious threat. So I think when she gets to around final 7, I could see her going out then. But if she can make it past that part, I could see her getting to the end and winning easily.
I would agree with you for the most part, except I'm going to go and call this. I will say I think she's going to be similar, exactly better jury. She can be either voted out at Final Four, because we don't know what we're going to have. So I'm going to say this. She can either be voted out or Final Four, or she's going to be a Fire Challenge loser. Whichever one we decide, whichever one we end up having, I think I could see her going in that spot. Either her going into Fire and losing, or like she would have won, but like she was a huge threat, and I think she had to go. And she's very good. She's very funny in her interviews. Like she's just super easy to get along with. Again, like I think we have a lot of social people on this cast, and it's gonna be a battle of them.
I just remember grinning like an idiot during her entire interview.
Yeah.
She is so nice and friendly and sweet and personable. I love her to death, and I don't even know her. So, I mean, I'm not familiar with. It'll be interesting to see because that only goes so far, and I say that, and I think Julia falls into this category too. If you're that incredibly sweet personality, that's when people like Hart, like Jackie, like who is it? Is it Matthew? If he succeeds in being a first-time villain?
Mitchell.
Those are very much the early merge targets.
Agreed.
Late pre-merge. So I think that's her risk there. I think if she finds the right people, if she hooks up with the people who have expressed that they are very, very loyal, I think she'll go far.
Agreed. She's a good player. I would say that much. Like, I'm excited to see her play. I've known the girl for 15 minutes. I've had very little conversation with her. Like, even like stuff with her getting supply stuff, very little interaction, and just her overall personality. She just funny, and she doesn't even like mean to be funny. It just comes out. Like, she's just very good. Anyone else got anything else to add? Or so are we good? So before we get to our next two people, we do have we had the DCP monopoly, as we call it here in production. We do love DCP, but we decided because of the bad cat, not because of the bad casting choices, but because the casting choices we had, we decided to bring back 2 of our pre-merges from last season, and we'll get to them. Has a chance to redeem himself, give them a second chance, because we kind of felt bad about what happened, and it wasn't our fault, and we don't fault DCP for it. However, we just decided, you know what, these are 2 people we saw potential in, and here at production, we want to make sure that they can bring them back because we think they could do well in the game. So those would be our next 2 people. One of them is Mr. Alex Margulis. His pronouns are he, him. He's 23, Wyckoff, New Jersey, audio engineer and a music instructor. So DCP, this was Alex's very first mini, the one he played last season. He didn't really know the structure. He's played other games since. I don't know if he's played a mini, but like this was like one of his very first games. I think Alex is going to be able to redeem himself, and especially with a lot of the pre-existing connections. Alex is a very funny guy. He's going to do weird motion. Like he's outgoing. I think it's going to help him. I worry about him like being too good and going like or I think he's going to make the merge this time. I just think it's a matter of how long he lasts in the merge. And I've talked to him since, and he has this thing to be like, he was telling me about a game he was in, and all these things he's trying to pull off. I'm like, dude, you need to tone it down. Like he tends to overplay and overshare his hand. I just think it's gonna be a matter of how he turns that down. I'm excited to see Alex play again. I'm excited to host him again. I'm excited to see what he's learned from his first mini. About like we saw like when Carrie comes up in that room, like, Alex, you vote for me? And he's like, I don't know. There's one vote, and you thought like, and just like unnecessary lying in the sense, like, dude, we know you're lying. Like, it's like I think he's gonna learn from it. And he was like, even looking at himself, he was like, oof, dude, that was not good. I was like, yeah, like he's learned from it. I think he's gonna benefit. I don't know how much he's learned from other games and not being that overbearing threat. But again, this is a mini. He may not catch on to it. So I think I could see Alex do well this time.
I really enjoyed getting to know him. Even though it's a pretty limited amount of time in the mini. I think he's a very likable person. I think he also comes across as like he's someone that likes to strategize. Sometimes he can overplay, but he at least is someone that's thinking. If he can, like you said, just tone it down, I could see him doing well. I think also in this cast are very like big personalities. I think he's a likable person without being too out there, without being too like obvious of a social threat.
Yeah, he's definitely got shields. He's definitely got options.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Matt. I never got to talk to him in the first mini. We were, I think, always on different sides, and he was a victim of the DCP curse. So watching back, I think you're right. He did come out a little hard when he shouldn't have, but I think he was doomed anyway.
Right.
But he has that personality, as you said, where he's not a huge personality, but he's very likable. And I think other people will see him as sort of a loyal ally and maybe conceive of him as their second. But if he plays it right, and is the one pushing the ideas in a more subtle way, I think he'll go very far.
I will say this, he is loyal to fault. And number two, I think you're right. He has to read through them better because even if you look at the back of the episodes, like I love Elijah. Elijah's one of our members of production now, actually. But if you look at it, if he was able to read the room a little bit better, Elijah could have gone in his place instead of him, and who knows what would have happened then. Like, I think that's his biggest fault is being able to read the room, sit back, and not try to be this, I don't know, and try own his game a little bit more and say, I'm sorry I voted for you. I wasn't told to name it all. I had no problem voting for, but like, even if he did that, like, even if he lied about it, he would have had a better chance. Go ahead, Marvin.
So I am actually curious to see how he's going to play this season and what he learned from like how he played last season. Like, is he going to come in and do the exact same thing that he did then? I understand the whole DCP thing, but outside of that, I wonder if he's going to come in and play the exact same way, or is he actually going to be willing to do more, or step back a bit like you guys have been mentioning and not go like hard from the get-go.
Right, and especially because I didn't mention this, I don't think, but they're returning captains. They're going to be picking their tribes. They already have a leadership role, so he has to take that in and take as he will with it, because I feel like people are going to be expecting stuff from him, So I think it's going to be a matter of how he plays that up too. Anything else on Alex before we get to our second returning captain? All right, next we have our second returning captain, who is our second boot in my last season winner pick, Andrew Marcus. His pronouns are he, him. He's 36. He's from Limerick, Pennsylvania, and he's a personal trainer. As always, Andrew is a very good player, very strategic, very social. It's just a matter of how Andrew can navigate this, because like I said, I think Andrew was so close, but it was that last minute conversation that somebody on this call right now had that was able to push. And I remember sitting there like at the production chat, we're like, how did Andrew get home? Like, we're like, oh, how did this turn unanimous? Because there's Matt. We're like, oh, Matt's gone. So I think it's just a matter of how he can play his social game and be able to maybe learn from Matt and see like, oh, okay, let me try to get into this room and be able to make sure he pushes an aim, he sticks to it. And I think if he gets past like a round, the first few rounds, he's good. I'm hoping he's not my winner pick this time, so it probably means he's gonna win. No, my luck. But I think he's gonna be another early merge boot. I think if he can get past those rounds of being a big threat and prove that he's an asset, I can see him going at merge boot. Like, yeah, he's gonna win challenges, guys. Let's get him out of here while we can. I'm hoping he does well. I really want him to redeem himself, especially because he played DCP like 2 weeks after our mini and got second place again. So who else has anything time in?
So if he makes it past second boot, third boot, I mean, the third round, not third boot, third round, that is when people are going to start keeping their eyes on him, because that's when the first, I don't want to say too much, but that's essentially when physical challenge will probably come into play. And once the physical aspect of his game comes into mind, it can either hurt him, and people are like, oh, we need to keep an eye on him and he needs to go sooner rather than later, or it will help him out and they're like, oh, we need to keep him around because we don't know what challenges are coming next. We don't know what physical challenges are coming within the next couple rounds, and that will help his tribe out.
Right, I agree. With that, if he can sell that a little better, he will make it. He'll make it far in the tribal phase, and I think he can build alliances after that. Like, I think the question is, can Andrew survive the first few votes? If he does that, he can make the connections and he can go far.
Yeah.
I think it's going to depend on what challenges there are and when, and whether or not he can if he can really demonstrate that value. I can see that. I do kind of see him being early merge boot because, I mean, look at him. He is in amazing shape. He is the very, very obvious threat to be a challenge piece. So I could see him being targeted for that. But if he can do that, maybe even if he does need to win a challenge or two early merge, I could see him possibly slipping through the cracks later on. But early on, I do see him being targeted as a big threat.
I agree. Full disclosure, Andrew threw my name out second round, so he had to die. But all that's old game, fresh start. I agree. I think Andrew, if he can make it through the first couple of rounds, I think he needs to, as you said, Matt, he's definitely a physical threat. That's a very intimidating picture. But I think he first wants to present himself as a meat shield to get him through late pre-merge, early merge, and at the same time have built the relationships where he can, like at 5 or 6, come in pow, 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 and combine both winning challenges and working strategy to give him a well-rounded game. I actually think, I think he'll make merge. I want to say mid-merge. I think he will need, if he makes it to like 5 or 4, I think he's going to be in a position where he's going to need to win out.
Right. I agree. I think I've seen it happen. I've heard from games that he's scary. Like, if you get him in those late game comps, he's scary. So he could definitely do it. I want to put it past him. Biggest things about Andrew here, it's like, he hosted me a few weeks ago. He knows what's up. Like, he's got to get through those, see those challenges. He's got to like see those kind of like, okay, how to downplay my threat level, how to make sure I'm safe. If he can get through that, he's golden. He's golden. If he can get through merge, I can see him being like, we'll worry about Ant. Like, I can see people kind of not sleep on him, but I think he's good enough for, like, he's not this giant meat shield, right? He's kind of like this more mellow down guy where, like, okay, he can downplay it enough where people won't worry about it and they'll trust him enough to be like, I'll get rid of him because I need Andrew right now. And then that's when he's going to comp out and everyone's going to be like, well, you should have been sitting at the end. Like, you should have got him out when we said you were, and then he's gonna end up getting jury votes. Like, I think if he gets that point, Andrew has a good chance of winning. The question for me is like, I don't know what Andrew's road to get there to win is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyone else got anything to add before we wrap up here? I'm gonna stop my share. So, let me rearrange that. Okay. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We hope that you look forward to seeing our cast soon here at Radical Reality Productions and watching the episodes. We will start next week with our winners draft, and which we're actually recording right after this. But anyway, I'm your host, and we have the rest of the production team signing off right now. Good night, guys.